Hey everybody, I hope you're doing well. My name's William, this is iRacing, and today I'm going to be driving the Porsche 718 Cayman GT4 Club Sport around Road America. This car is at the Michelin Pilot, for the Michelin Pilot Challenge Series in iRacing. This week, it's GT4s and TCRs around here for a 30-minute race. Going to be doing this, like I said, for the Porsche specifically, but the track guide that I'm going to have should be applicable to the other GT4 car, the BMW, as well. Um, we'll have a hot lap for you, track guide, and then setup as well as always in these videos. Just finally, I want to say if you do like this video, please give it a like. It does help me out a ton, and I really do appreciate it. As well as let me know in the comments below if you want to see more of this kind of stuff, and if you do, subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any of that. Now that all that generic YouTube crap's out of the way, let's go ahead and get on into the hot lap, and then we'll be back to go over the track guide with you. Enjoy. All right, let's go ahead and hop into the track guide here for Road America in the Porsche Cayman. So at the start finish line here, we're just starting our lap. Very long front stretch here on this track. Really not looking for turn one until we're at the pit exit here on the right. And you can just see these cones and this access road coming up on the left side of the track. So the cones are going to be my marker. As we get closer to it here, I'm going to point out this access road as well. This access road is a really good marker for you to get on your brakes if you're really tight in behind someone and maybe these cones are obstructed by the car or something along those lines. Once you get to this access road, you kind of know you need to be on the brakes if you're going to make turn one with any kind of a decent shot here and carry any kind of decent speed through it. So right on the fourth set of cones, I'm going to hit the brakes really hard. I do want to note there are marks along the wall out here, but they're so far to the left, it's really not good to use them. So just use these cones, and if for some reason these cones aren't there, if they got knocked off by a car just in front of you and they haven't popped back up on track yet, this white line across or just the end of the access road, great marker. These white lines will be pretty much um, all the way along the track. If there's a braking board or a braking marker, um, you're going to have a white line painted on the track that is exactly where that board is on the wall as well. So these are great to use as well, this white line. So um, right at this fourth cone, like I said, hard on the brakes. And then as we get to this first cone, you can see just starting to put a little bit of wheel in it. So this one cone is a great point to where you want to actually start your turn in. And it's quite a ways out, but we're still carrying a pretty decent amount of speed. So quite a ways out here, we're turning into turn one. And I am aiming for this red and yellow curbing on the inside. I don't want to hit it immediately, but I do want to get on it about whenever it hits its full width, and just place my right side tires on this curbing, really trying to maximize and extend the width of the track as much as possible. That's going to be common basically all the way around this track. So once I'm on these curbs, I'm already actually back to full throttle. Basically, the second my front right is on this curb, back to full throttle, I am going to get a little bit of oversteer. These curbs aren't quite flat, so you can see the car bouncing, and it takes a weird bounce and kind of kicks the rear out until a little bit of oversteer. Have to catch it, but I'm still full throttle. I'm not too worried about it. Car's pretty well behaved, even though it is oversteering right there. And just going to be aiming to run off onto this gray on the outside of the red and yellow curb, and you can definitely do that. You want to maximize the track width as much as possible, like I said. So I'm going to run out here. I'm still turning the car to the right. I had to catch it and chase it, so I'm heading out here a little bit later than I probably normally would have. But we're going to actually drop a wheel here, and it's still clean, so you don't need to worry too much about not running over here on this gray stuff. Just make sure you've got it sorted out, and you've got it basically at least the middle of the car over this gray bit past the exit or past the end of the red and yellow curbing. You just kind of want it at least the middle of the car over this gray bit, like I said. So um, a fine line there from an off track, but clean nevertheless. Not ideal either. You don't necessarily want to drop a tire, but it's what I did. So going into turn, the next corner, I think it's actually turn 3 for some reason because this little kink counts as one, but um, I'm going to call it turn 2 because it really is actually like the second legit corner on this track. You've got your braking boards 4, 3, 2, and then 1 way up there. So we're going to be looking for 2, and once again, you can see this white line painted across because 2 is kind of far over to the left. You don't necessarily want to be looking over there as you get closer to it. It's a little bit awkward to kind of like keep your eyes over here when your eyes kind of dictate where you're going in the car. So just look for this little white marker across, and as you get close to it, hard onto the brakes. So we're hard onto the brakes, and then once again, about the 1 marker, we're rotating the car in, and same deal. We're just going to aim for a slightly early-ish apex here on the red and yellow curb, and just rotate the car in, and basically the second we hit this curb, we're back on the throttle, and once again really aggressively back on that throttle. It's you can lose a lot of time in these GT4s if you are not aggressive with your throttle pickup. um, so aggressively on the throttle, and once again, we're going to use all of the runoff over here on the exit of the corner. So just there we are, back on full throttle, and going over here and trying to use the red and yellow curb and then this gray curb as well. Honestly, could have carried a little bit more speed and gotten the car back on track a little bit sooner. Would have probably needed a slightly earlier apex there though. So now you're just going down the hill. There's nothing really to see here, just kind of snaking our way across, trying to take the shortest line as you kind of squiggle down towards the next big braking zone. And we're going to go ahead and stop here so you can see the markers. We just passed the 5, the outhouse, the 4, and then the 3. The 3 is where I'm wanting to brake. You don't want to run off, so you can kind of see here it looks like the grass ends and maybe that's pavement. Don't go over there. That is not pavement. And if you brake on this, it's kind of like gravel, sand stuff. If you brake on this or slightly run wide while you're already on the brakes, you're gonna really upset the car, probably spin it. So look for this 3, and as you get right almost right next to the 3, I think I actually broke just a touch early here. I probably could have waited just a second. Yeah, I could have waited just a little bit longer and broke right at the 3, but we're braking slightly before it. It's just fine. And hard onto the brakes once again, and then just kind of cheat over, so you can see how I kind of went from inside this white line to now the right side of my car is on this curbing. Once again, just extending the track as much as I can. I don't want to run all the way over there necessarily, but just putting my right side tires on that red and yellow curbing before turn in here. Just trying to carry as much speed on the apex and be able to get back to the throttle as soon as possible. And once again, using this runoff over here, even dropping a little bit of a wheel in the grass, just carrying as much speed out of the corner as possible. So the next corner here is quite difficult. You've got a uphill braking zone into a blind left-hander. These red signs on the wall to the right, these are what I use. This is my best friend. You can use this tree if you really want to, or maybe this outhouse, something along those lines. But I use this last red advertisement. So as we come up, we get right parallel to this radical sports cars. Um, Advertisement, and we're on the brakes. So this is a lighter braking zone. You are going uphill, and then it kind of like drops off. It's pretty easy to upset the car, especially if you don't have anti-lock brakes, but we do in these. So just a nice light, like 55-60% braking, and then as I'm starting to turn in, we're just carrying slightly a little bit of brake just to keep the front of the car set and turned in as we aim for a pretty proper apex on this corner, like about right in the middle on this red and yellow curbing, not trying to cut it any, just putting the left side tires on the curb. The second we do, we're back on the throttle. And once again, we have some runoff on the exit here we can use if we need to. You definitely don't necessarily want to make a habit of going all the way out there, because you do have to get the car all the way back to the left side of the track on the exit of this corner here. So um, there we are, full throttle, and then we're just pointing the car already to the left side of the track, pointing for this giant, big, great tree. It's just kind of dead center there, because there's a little gap in the wall, and that's going to be our next reference. It'll put us right where we need to be if we kind of aim for that tree off of that corner. So this break in the wall here, this is the turn-in point for the next corner. This isn't really a braking zone, just more of a lift and turn the car in. So you can see I'm just kind of aiming the car over to hit that white line just before that break in the wall. The second I need to turn the car to keep it from going into the grass is basically as I turn in. So just continue turning and rotating the car in, and then just putting the right side tires on this red and yellow curbing on the right side of the track. Some people will kind of cut this. They'll kind of put two tires into the grass, and you can sometimes carry a little bit more speed through there, but it does kind of upset the car, and you can get off track there if you cut it just slightly too much. I try and play it a little bit safe in making these, so you can play with that if you want a little bit, and just cut a little bit sooner into the corner, and just dip your right side tires in the grass right through there basically, and just take a little bit more speed. But ultimately I think the safer option is going to be just put your right side tires on this red and yellow curb, don't upset the car too much, and get back to the throttle super early using this red and yellow curb on exit. So now then, coming down into this corner, this one's a bit tricky. We're going to be looking, I think it's right between the 3 and the 2 for the braking markers. So what I'm doing is I'm looking at this white line in the middle of the track, and then just trying to time basically about a car and a half length prior to the 2 line that you can see up there for whenever I get on the brakes. So one car, about 2 cars past the 3, 2 cars before the 2. So it's about 2 car lengths before the 2 line. Hard onto the brakes, downhill braking zone, just really load the nose of the car up, rotate it on the 1, and start turning in and aiming for really like this red curb right there. That one specifically, I want my left front to just touch the curb right on that red, perfect, and then pick the throttle up once again really aggressively and try to get a good exit. You can use the runoff over here on the right. Pretty common too. You get a little bit of a slide in the car on a corner exit there, and just point the car almost immediately over back to the left to set up for the carousel. Going to be pointing it towards these Sargento advertisements, the after whatever that black one is there. Guardian, I believe, yes. So Sargento, and we're going to keep the car once again on the track, And this, once it is over on the left side of the track, we're just going to continue to rotate it on into the carousel. So I prefer to drive the car pretty aggressively into the carousel. So you're going to see we just basically full throttle into the carousel here, and we're not going to lift until we get um, actually down in to where I know I'm on this white line, and then we lift. So we are completely lifted now, just coasting through the carousel, and just a little tap of the brake, set the nose, make sure I don't run out more than about a car width to the left of this white line. And then from there, we're just rotating the car on the throttle, keeping a nice tight line through here. We're going to rotate the car with the throttle, make sure it doesn't go any wider than this, but we also don't want to apex too early because we're wanting to apex almost around this curbing all the way around here. So you can see how we're going to manipulate the throttle through here. We're hard on the throttle there, got it rotated. Now then we're going to coast a little bit, coast a little bit. That way, the reason you're coasting there is I know I can rotate the car to the inside, but I do not want to commit back to full throttle yet either, because if I do, I know I'm going to understeer off and miss this curbing on the exit of the corner. I'm basically going to have to lift later instead of just kind of biting the bullet and lifting. Like you can see here, the car's rotated nicely, but if I stayed full throttle, I would have had to lift around here, and that is really going to kill my corner exit speed. Whereas I can lift there just 30% or so, get the car rotated even more, know I'm going to hit this curb, and be able to fully commit back to the throttle at this point, 100% all the way out on corner exit, just using that curb there as well, just trying to maximize the speed, not scrub it, and whenever you fully commit to the throttle on the exit of that corner, make sure that it is actually a full commit and you're not going to have to lift again to keep from understeering off the track. There's a couple different lines you could take through the carousel, cover a couple different techniques, but that is the way I do it anyways. We'll just kind of watch that one back just because it's a very long corner. And it's kind of hard to talk through. We'll watch this one back at half speed so you can watch the throttle inputs and wheel and all that good stuff. So lifting, just setting the nose with the brakes a little bit, not running more than about a car width wide. Now rotating the car on the throttle, picking the speed back up, lifting again until I can commit back to the throttle and full throttle once again. It's not a long time off throttle, it's not a long time on brakes, but don't commit back to it until you know you're going to be able to keep the car on the track. So now then heading into the kink, this one is a little bit tough in this car. So once again, cheating over on this red and yellow curb. We'll just kind of take you through it at half speed real quick. You can see how little brake pressure it is, and then once again how early it is back onto the throttle. So we kind of cheated over to the left on the entry. We kind of cheat over right as these cones start, that way you're not dipping into the grass. Put the left side tires on this yellow and red curbing, and then right in between the 2 and the 1 here, we're just going to dab the brake just a little bit and then turn in almost immediately. Now then, the second I know that the car is pointed towards this red and yellow curb, I know I've got it rotated the way I want, and I'm going to go ahead and pick the throttle back up. Once again, very aggressive, and just commit to that throttle. Once you know you've got the car to apex where you want it to, you can go ahead and commit to the throttle, and then just start unwinding the steering. That way you're scrubbing as little speed as possible, and using this red and yellow curb, and then um, even the gray curb out there, you're totally fine using it. What you need to do though is you need to make sure you've got the car mostly straight if you are going to wind up dropping a wheel in this grass here. So you can see we barely drop a wheel there, but we're not really rotating the car anymore. The car is pretty well straight, and we can just exit now down into Canada corner. This one kind of sneaks up on you. You got to spot your braking zone pretty darn quick. I messed this corner up on this lap. So you can see the line here. This should be, or it's kind of an arrow pointing to the right, and you can just see the 4. The 4 is where I would want to be braking, but you can see how early I got on the brakes before the 4. So that's just on me. I lost quite a bit of time because of it, but nevertheless, You can kind of see how quickly that one comes up. You kind of round this corner, spot the arrow, and then the 4 is right there. So just being prepared, being comfortable with kind of knowing exactly where you're going to brake. It comes up on you fast. But this 4 is where we're going to want to brake. We do brake a little bit early. It's a very hard braking zone. And then right around the 1, once again, you are rotating the car in towards this apex. So into the red and yellow curb, once again, putting the right side tires on the red and yellow curb. You can kind of cut this a little bit. If you go too far, like where these tire marks are, this is going to give you an off track most likely. But if you just drop your right side tires into that gravel, it does kind of allow you to carry a little bit more speed through there, get on the throttle a little bit sooner. So uh, it's pretty common to see people do that. You can definitely just play it safe and keep it in the red and yellow curbing. And then once again, as we kind of getting out of that dirt, and we know that we've got the car pointed straight, aggressively back on the throttle once again, and using all of this extra track over here on the left side of this white line. This is free runoff, no off track, no anything. Just make sure you don't drop it in the gravel and use it all, basically. Now through this section, you're going to rotate the car immediately back over to the right and just kind of hug this inside and the red and yellow curb coming up. So putting the car on the curb early, we're going to go ahead and keep the car on the red and yellow curb as it comes up. We're going to turn in on throttle still and then give a little lift. And once we hit the red and yellow curb on the left side of the track, go ahead and pick the throttle back up. So by little lift, I don't mean a small amount like just cracking the throttle. I mean just completely lifting for a small amount of time. So you can see here just a little lift and then right back onto the throttle once we hit that curb. Aiming for this yellow right here is basically what you want to aim for on exit. So you can go ahead and unwind the wheel and just aim for this yellow curbing on the exit and go ahead and put the car over here on the right. So you're scrubbing as little speed as possible and carrying as much speed as possible through that corner as you now set up for the last corner. Again, you've got these marks across the track, you know, the 4, 3, 2, 1 with the lines and everything, but the best marker for me in this corner is this change of color in the tarmac. It goes from kind of a light gray to a darker gray. So once we hit this darker gray, onto the brakes I go. There's kind of a seam as well. You can definitely see the difference between these two. If for some reason that one doesn't work for you, it's just right underneath this big billboard. It's just a little bit past the big billboard. Um, just onto the brakes, about 65-70% onto the brakes, and then pretty soon after, you kind of drive the car on the brakes further over to the left. You kind of aim for your turn-in point, which is around that curb. You can see we go all the way out to that curb and then rotate the car into the final corner, and just aiming for putting the right side tires completely on this red and yellow curbing on the inside here. So we're already driving the car off the corner by that point. It's a really strange corner, the last one. I'll go ahead and play it through one more time just at half speed so you can kind of see exactly the way it goes. We rotate the car in, point it towards that curbing. Second, the car is headed towards the curbing, already back on the throttle aggressively, once again using all of the runoff and then some on the corner exit. It's free, it's there, it's extra time around the track using it as you want to carry as much speed as humanly possible out of that corner, as you've got a very long front stretch and it's uphill as well. You really need to carry as much speed as you can out of that corner, and that will carry you all the way down to the start finish line, which is where we started. And yeah, that is a track guide for Road America in the Porsche 718 Cayman GT4. I hope you all enjoyed and hope that helps you out. Okay, so we'll go ahead and take a look at the lap time here. A 218.274. Pretty good through all the sectors except for sector 5. Lost a bit of time, like I talked about in the track guide, just a little bit too cautious through Canada corner, just not aggressive into the braking zone. Unfortunately, but definitely more time out there. I would have gone out there and tried for the 217. It's definitely on the table. There's even more time than this optimal in this car for sure. But whenever I was recording this, I had jacked up my finger earlier in the day and completely sliced it open. Driving kind of hurts, so sorry about that, but I hope you all understand. Either way, those are the sector times there for you. You can see the track temp here that we did it in. It's kind of fluctuating between 119 degrees Fahrenheit, 120 degrees Fahrenheit, somewhere in there. It's about 48 degrees Celsius, if I remember correctly. So uh, that is those are the conditions, anyways. I'm gonna go ahead and take a look at the setup here. So lowest possible tire pressures is still the way to go. I will say this car is a little bit of um, uh, a little bit of a handful until the tire pressures kind of come up. So if you're practicing this week, right out of the pits, this car, it takes a couple corners for it to stop trying to rotate on you, especially under hard braking. The rear can definitely snap away from you, so just kind of take it a little bit easy until those pressures kind of build up. It doesn't take very long, especially at these track temps. Just 2, 3 corners in, and you should have decent stability out of the car. But for settings lowest possible still. Um, Take a look here at all of this good stuff. Really, I'll go ahead and change this over to metric as well, as I think that's a little bit easier to copy over. The only things I really want to talk about on here are the front anti-roll bar setting. So I set this to the stiffest setting, which is 3. The softest setting is 1. Um, I set it to the stiffest setting because uh, there's a lot of corners around this track where you're kind of rotating the car while you are still very hard on the brakes. Um, with it any softer, I felt like it was very lazy and unresponsive on the front when I was trying to get the car rotated into the corner. So um, I went with the stiffest setting because it made it feel much more responsive, and I felt like I was actually able to drive the car into the corner the way I wanted to. Um, but it does kind of come at the cost a little bit of some of the corners where you're not braking, you're just kind of lifting, like the kink. You do brake a little bit for the kink, but um, or the carousel, uh, or the second to last corner around the track. You do get a little bit more understeer. It's really, you can drive around either of the settings, but that is kind of the trade-off. So if you want to try the other way, uh, just click this down to 1, maybe try setting 2, setting 3. It doesn't take a whole lot of time to test. There's only 3 settings. You don't need to change anything else to go with them. Um, the other thing I was going to talk about was the brake pressure for this car. Um, I'm starting on 47.5. 47.5 is like the first 2 laps max, and then start clicking it back. I go back 2 clicks basically for the rest of the drive, just to allow the car. It on 47.5 gives you a little bit more stability under the brakes, and then once the tire temperatures come up, you can start moving the brake bias further back and move it more rearwards so that you can rotate the car a little bit easier on the brakes. You're not too worried about that stability anymore because the car gets a little bit more stable as the tire pressures come up. Like I said originally, the other thing to talk about here is the toe on the rear of the car. So if you're if you're struggling at all with uh, stability on the car, especially whenever you put the power down, if you're getting any oversteer or anything like that, and you want to try and fix it, a good way to do that is just to add about a click of toe in the positive direction on the rear of the car. Um, it does kind of come at the cost of how easy it is to rotate the car. And that's where a lot of speed is in these GT4s, is getting them rotated uh, fairly easily, and trying to induce a little bit more rotation out of them. Um, That's why I run the toe as low as I do. I really don't have too many issues with on throttle stability in these cars. Do get moments of oversteer, but it's almost always pretty darn easy to catch. But if you are experiencing that, just one click, maybe two at the most. I wouldn't go any higher than that on the toe. And as for it, if you're trying to get more rotation, I don't think reducing the toe on the rear is really worth too much more. In all honesty, some people even go into like negative. Um, I think that's not a really great place to go from my experience in the car. But yeah, that's basically all I would do in that regards. If you do want a little bit more rotation out of the rear, you can try increasing the rear anti-roll bar by a click or so, and just see if that helps you with the rotation that you're looking for. Alternatively, like I said, just play with this brake bias. Most of the time, the rotation is going to be on braking, on corner entry. So just play with that brake bias, lower it down a little bit more, and see if that helps you out with your rotation. Um, anyways, yes. The last thing, the fuel level, 44 liters, um, 11.6 gallons, if that's what you fancy. But um, it should be about point eight gallons, just a little under point 0.8 gallons a lap, somewhere around that per lap. So this should be safe. Um, Maybe adding a click more if you are very aggressive with your throttle on your outlap, somewhere around there. So if you want the safe setting, if you want the like safe setting, I would go 46 liters and 12.2 gallons. In all honesty, I wouldn't be worried about running the bare minimum amount of fuel in this car, as one, it's really not worth too terribly much in time, but also you have to remember as you add fuel to this car, you're actually adding nose weight to it, which ultimately just gives you a little bit more weight over the front tires, and that means a little bit more grip from them for the most part. So um, it's not a terrible trade-off if you want the uber safe fuel setting and run like 13 gallons. You're probably not going to lose that much time to it, but 45, 44 liters, or 11.9, 11.6 gallons, somewhere around that range should be just fine for the race. But like I said, if you want to increase that a little bit, you're looking at about, um, like I said, just around zero point 0.8 of a gallon a lap. And you can kind of work that out with what you're seeing as far as how many laps the race is going for you and that kind of thing. So as always with this stuff, guys, I appreciate all of your support. I hope this helps you out if you're racing this week. Best of luck to you. I wish I could. I love this track, but I think my hand's probably going to keep me sidelined until it heals up a little bit better. So, um, yeah, kind of a little bummed about that, but I hope this does help you. And if you do like this and you want to see more of this kind of stuff, definitely give the video a like. I know it's that generic YouTube thing everyone says, but give the video a like. It helps me out a ton. Subscribe if you want to see more. That also helps me out, and you won't miss anything. So until next time, bye bye.